This is a podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore how people begin responding differently to uncertainty over time and what quietly shifts when reassurance is no longer doing all the work. In the last episode, we looked at why reassurance helps briefly but doesn't last. What often follows that understanding is a question people don't always ask directly. If reassurance isn't the solution, what actually changes things? For most people, the shift doesn't come from trying harder or thinking differently. It comes from a gradual change in how uncertainty is experienced. At first, uncertainty feels like something that needs resolving. A gap opens and attention rushes towards it. The mind gets busy, the body becomes alert, action feels necessary. Over time, especially when reassurance is seen for what it is, that urgency can soften. This doesn't happen all at once. People don't suddenly become comfortable with not knowing. What changes is the relationship with the not knowing. You might notice this in very ordinary moments. A message hasn't arrived yet, and instead of immediately checking, you pause. The urge is still there, but it's quieter. Or you notice the familiar pull to seek reassurance, but you don't act on it straight away. You wait a little longer than you used to. That waiting is not passive, it's an active experience of staying present with uncertainty rather than escaping it. Over time, the system learns something new. It learns that uncertainty can be tolerated without immediate resolution. Not comfortably, not perfectly, but sufficiently. That learning doesn't come from logic, it comes from experience. This is why people often describe change as subtle. There's no dramatic breakthrough. Instead, there's a growing sense that things don't escalate in the same way. Thoughts still arise, but they don't spiral as far. The body still reacts, but it settles more quickly. You may also notice that your responses become less automatic. Where reassurance once felt like the only option, other responses become available. You might distract yourself, you might reflect briefly, you might simply allow the moment to pass. These responses aren't strategies in the usual sense, they emerge because the system no longer treats uncertainty as an emergency. In close relationships, this shift can be particularly noticeable. You may find that you don't need the same level of confirmation to feel connected. Waiting still matters, but it doesn't define the relationship in the same way. A delay no longer carries the same emotional weight. This doesn't mean attachment needs disappear. People still care. They still want closeness. What changes is how much uncertainty disrupts that closeness internally. Counseling supports this process by creating space where uncertainty can be explored rather than resolved. When people talk through their reactions without rushing to conclusions, they begin to experience uncertainty differently. It becomes something that can be named, felt, and reflected on. Over time, people often notice that they are less preoccupied with getting things settled quickly. They don't need certainty to feel okay in the same way. This doesn't make life predictable, but it does make it more manageable. Another change that often emerges is increased trust in one's own capacity. When reassurance is no longer the main stabilizer, people begin to rely more on their own internal sense of balance. They learn that they can ride out moments of ambiguity without losing their footing. This internal trust doesn't eliminate difficult moments, it changes how those moments are met. Instead of reacting immediately, there is space to respond. You might recognize this as a quiet confidence rather than a bold one. Nothing outwardly changes, but the internal experience is less noisy, less urgent, less consuming. Importantly, this shift doesn't require perfection. People still seek reassurance at times. They still overthink occasionally. What changes is the proportion. These responses take up less space and less time. Understanding this helps reframe progress. Progress isn't the absence of uncertainty, it's the ability to stay present when uncertainty appears. In the next episode, we'll keep going and look at how these changes affect how people show up in relationships over time and how patterns begin to loosen without deliberate effort.